are listening to the podcast for learning the language of A Course in Miracles so you can understand the meaning, embody the message, and live the teachings as a way of life. Welcome to episode 27 of this podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Jennifer McSween, creator of this podcast and the Course in Miracles practice coach for taking those who are studying the Course from inspiration to application. On this week's episode, I'm going to talk about the concept of giving and receiving in A Course in Miracles. Now, according to the Course, giving and receiving is one of its most important and radical concepts that reflects the truth about us and the world. But the way it's looked at from the perspective of the world reinforces the misperception of guilt, separation, and fear, and the reality of a world defined by scarcity and lack. Because the way we look at giving and receiving literally is from a perspective of scarcity and lack. The way we look at the world, though the way we look at it in the world, giving is the opposite of receiving. So giving and receiving are seen as separate things. When you give something, you give it to someone, or you give it away, you lose it because you've given it away. Now you no longer have it, but the person who has received it does. And we tend to look at giving in particular similar to the way we look at gratitude that I talked about in last week's episode. That is, as a necessary and expected obligation to prove our deservedness, to have, or our worthiness to receive. Now, it's not that we won't willingly give or don't genuinely desire to give or to show gratitude for what we have been given, but we look at giving and receiving as well as giving thanks or showing gratitude from a perspective of sacrifice, scarcity, and lack. And here's what I mean by that. Because we've accepted the ego's thought system of separation, we believe that lack is possible. What we have is what we're given, either by God or others. We don't believe that we naturally have everything, or anything for that matter, let alone everything. And some of us seem to have more than others. And so those who have more, we see as, or if we have more, we feel we're obligated to give to those who have less, lest we appear selfish or undeserving and lose what we have been given. Because remember, we don't have anything to begin with. So it's almost as if we're being done a favor by being given anything. And again, as I shared, whether it's something that we feel has been given to us by God or given to us by others. Because we truly believe we are limited. So giving is seen as a form of sacrifice, giving away something of value that you own to another, depriving yourself for their benefit and indirectly yours. Now, this concept of giving as a form of sacrifice, by the way, is analogous to the concept of Christ sacrificing his life on the cross to save humanity. And this is a concept that's central to the Christian perspective, which, by the way, has a lot of influence or carries a lot of weight in the Western world. And the Course calls this giving to get, and it stems from the belief in guilt. And whether it's the guilt of religions that say we've sinned against God and we must therefore atone for those sins by engaging in acts of sacrifice, generosity, or acts of kindness, or whether it's the ego's guilt, which is the belief that a godless, unjust, insane, lacking, tragic thought could be real, which is what the world is, or how the world seems. Everything in the world seems to be that of lacking God and not being fear, literally being insane or crazy. And of course, lack is prevalent. And tragedy is literally what defines the world. Everything ends in tragedy. And so that is the ego's guilt. And that is also a kind of guilt when we give from this place of sacrifice and lack and scarcity, or we look at giving from that perspective, what we're doing is we are reinforcing that belief in guilt. Now, another thing you can say when you give from this perspective of giving to get, or from a place of guilt or scarcity and lack, is that what you're doing is you're not offering a gift, but you're creating a debt, right? Because you're expecting some kind of payback in some form, compensation for what was given or taken or received. And this is the perspective that underlies the way we give in the world. So often, we hear people talking about, or we hear talk about the need to give back to a community or a neighborhood in which someone grew up and became successful in some way. You hear it often either said to or by either professional athletes who made it big, or someone who came out of perhaps an impoverished neighborhood and made it big in business, became very successful, or celebrities and the like. And the perception is that the neighborhood, community, or group, or whatever it is, whatever source or place they came from, literally gave them a break, or provided the opportunity, or whatever it was that made them make it, so to speak. Because it's almost as if, we look at it as the odds are against us to begin with. And so that community, that neighborhood, that environment made them make it. So now they need to give back what they took that allowed them to make it. It is also the same kind of thinking that underlies the idea of paying it forward that we hear so very often lately, and is seen as noble an act as the idea of giving something back. Now, paying it forward is the idea of making or providing something, making something available that you have been given to or for someone else. I remember once being offered a personal development program free of charge on the condition that I would pay it forward, quote unquote, by paying for it to be gifted to someone else free of charge in the same way that it was gifted to me. Now, maybe this wasn't the most ethical practice or application of paying it forward, and it might have even been a ruse to sell products by this particular person or group, but you get the idea. And I'm not saying that giving in either of these cases shouldn't be done, not that you should not, it's not a good idea, or it's not a good thing to perhaps want to contribute or give something to a community or an environment or a group, what have you, from which you came, that you felt may have supported you, or even if just a perceived need is there. Nor do I think there is anything wrong with wanting to provide or make something available for a person or a group who may not have that opportunity. But what I'm saying is, it's just that when we look at giving to anything or anyone, or giving from that perspective of sacrifice, of obligation, or of lack or deprivation, we reinforce the belief in guilt. And this is what the Course is saying, that literally keeps us from recognizing our true selves and experiencing the truth, the way things really are, and the way we really are. Now, according to the Course, giving and receiving are the same, not opposites. They can't be anything but the same in light of these two most fundamental premises of the Course. The first one says that mind is all there is, and everything happens in the mind. And the second is that the content of the mind is ideas, so that everything is an idea. What this means in terms of giving and receiving is that, number one, all you are ever really giving is an idea, not a thing. And even though our gifts are usually in some form of a physical thing, remember the form or physical thing has no substance or value in and of itself. What matters and what is of value is always and only the idea behind it. And to entertain an idea in the mind is the same as giving, because you literally give it existence by giving it attention. And since you experience the content or nature of the thoughts and ideas you entertain, experiencing the nature of this thought or idea is receiving what you're giving, right? This makes giving and receiving the same. And number two, when you give an idea, you do not lose it. Unlike the physical form of a thing, where if you give something in form, you do lose it when it's given away because you no longer have it in form. But when you give an idea, that is, you entertain an idea or you share it with others, you not only keep it, but it increases. You lose nothing. Take, for example, this idea about giving and receiving that I'm sharing with you right now. My sharing it with you doesn't mean that I've lost it or no longer have or possess it. To the contrary, everyone who hears me share it now possesses it themselves, and I still have it. And they can in turn share it with others, further increasing the idea in terms of more people having it, they're still having it without my losing it. And each time I share it, I literally receive it and get to keep it again. And the same with others. From this perspective, then, giving and receiving are not just the same, they're identical, right? So the correct perception of giving and receiving, the one that will allow you to recognize and learn and experience the truth, is to not see the giver as someone who loses and the receiver as one who benefits. And we should not give out of this perceived obligation because, again, of a misperception of scarcity or lack, but to look at giving and receiving as different forms of extending, expressing, and experiencing love, which the Course teaches is not only all there is, but the only thing we can ever give or receive, love. And what it is also what we are to teach and do while we're literally metaphorically here. Not literally metaphorically, but while we're metaphorically here, the Course says what we are to do is to teach only love and to extend, express, and experience only love. Because here's the thing. Regardless of what we may appear to be lacking, whether it's money, companionship, support of some kind, opportunity, credibility, a sense of worthiness, what is taking place is that we're seeing ourselves as separate from God, right? We're envisioning this in our mind. This is what we're entertaining and giving life to, giving existence to, this misperception. And when we're separate, seeing ourselves as separate from God means we feel we're also separate from love. And again, as you think, so you experience, you're entertaining and you're experiencing the nature of that thought in some form of lack, in some area, whether it be an area of our body, an area of our life, or an area of the world. We are literally giving credence and value and existence to the idea behind all apparent forms of lack, which again is separation. So all we are ever really giving is an idea. The form or the manner in which it is experienced is a reflection of the nature or content of that idea. And we, quote unquote, give an idea by entertaining it. As we think or entertain an idea, we experience it. That is, we receive it. So giving and receiving, as the Course teaches, are one in truth. Because in truth, there is no lack or separation, so there is nothing or no need to give anything to anyone. We all have everything. We are all one with each other. All there is mind. Everything is taking place in the mind, in the form of your thinking and experiencing the thoughts and ideas in the mind, and experiencing them in a form that directly reflects the contents of those thoughts and ideas. What you give attention to, you receive in the form of experiencing it in some way. So giving and receiving are really one and the same. So that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Understanding the Language of A Course in Miracles podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, please leave me a review on iTunes so that others can hear about it, enjoy it, and find it helpful also. And if you have not yet done so, or you're listening for the first time, do subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Have a great week, and see you on the podcast next Wednesday.